You are listening to an American Free Press podcast. Joining me on the line is Wendy Lineweaver from Michigan. Wendy, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you very much.
Wendy, I saw online an article the other day, Hutaree Militia acquitted of plot to foment revolution. Now, I want to talk about that in detail, but before we do, for the benefit of the listeners, can you let them know who you are and how you're related to the Hutaree Militia?
My name is Wendy Lineweaver, and I was a member of Hutaree, and we all kind of got to be friends and kind of hanging out where like-minded folks all hang out and got to know each other, and they started setting up trainings, and we started to go, and we all had a lot of fun and ate hot dogs afterwards, running out in the woods with our gear on, and we just all got to be pretty good friends until the FBI agent showed up that was infiltrated into the group.
All right, let's start from the beginning. This word, Hutaree, which is spelled Hutaree, that's a word that was created by the group or one individual in the group, is that right? And what exactly does it mean?
Well, I think it was a word that David's older son made up. I think he used to say it as a child or something, and he just liked the word and used it and kept it. I don't think it has any specific meaning, really. I think it was just something that the child used to say when he was young. So it stuck, I guess. That's as far as my understanding. I could be wrong, but that's how I sort of understand it. Yeah, I think that's what Dave said, actually. So.
Okay, and Dave, you say Dave. Who's Dave?
Dave Stone. He was the leader of Hutaree.
Not the leader anymore?
No, because officially when him and his son Josh Stone yesterday pleaded guilty to the weapons charges, they pretty much officially became felons, so they can no longer own firearms. But that doesn't mean they couldn't help in other ways. If there was some kind of a natural disaster, the militia's job is to go out and help clean up, like with these tornadoes, and we're experiencing that up here in Dexter, Michigan. One of our good friends' house property got torn up pretty bad by the tornado. So the militia comes and helps them clean up and repair stuff. Those guys can certainly do stuff like that. I think as far as the weapons go, that's not really going to happen, I don't think, anymore.
Did you say they pled guilty to the charges?
The weapons charges only. The rest of the charges, the first 7 counts on them were dropped by the judge.
I'm looking at a couple of websites, and I guess at some point Hutaree had their own website. I don't think they do anymore.
No, it was taken down.
But I guess when they did have it up, it says here on Wikipedia the name Hutaree means Christian warriors. Have you ever heard of that?
Uh-huh, yes. Yep, that's what Dave pretty much firmly believed in. And a lot of people get scared of that archetype description because they associate that with racist groups like Christian identity groups and things of that nature. That is not at all what this group was about. You throw around terms like Christian warrior and stuff, and people like the Southern Poverty Law Center get all their panties in a wad over that. You know what I'm saying?
That's their job.
That's their job, to get their panties in a bunch, yeah.
Oh, yeah, I actually interviewed one of the head panty wadders there. Mark Potok.
I call him Mark Buttlock.
He's a nice guy. I had basically asked him, he could please define hate because they love throwing around that term hate. And basically
they love it.
Basically what he told me was that it's a subjective term, which of course I already knew. But he admitted it. Pretty much they're a joke, the Southern Poverty Law Center. They're just a scam. The name Hutaree, like you said, that was pretty much almost like goo goo gaga, a baby word, and they thought it was cute, and they used it for this. And one of its meanings, at least, can be Christian warriors.
Yeah.
What was the group formed for?
I really couldn't tell you the reason. I've never asked Dave that. To be honest, I don't know that I should be maybe commenting on anything I don't really know a whole lot about. I really don't know that reason. I'm not sure. I think Dave wanted his own group. He actually made up his own language, and everybody had a different kind of a made-up language name, a Hutaree name, that they called each other, and they entered all that into evidence, too, all their names that they put on their uniforms, and it was just ridiculous. The spectacle of the trial.
It was kind of like a little club, almost like a club you play when you're kids.
Pretty much. In fact, one of Dave's sons was the one who was really good at making up those names.
What was your name?
Good Lord, I really don't even know. I saw it in the trial, and I'm like, wow, I didn't even remember that.
How long were you a member of this club?
On and off for like 3 years, and then we started talking about getting a base camp going if things were to fall apart, kind of like somewhere for us to go and defend our little plot of land or whatever,
You really don't know why it was formed. What did you think the purpose of it was?
it just kind of blossomed with the videos that they started to make and put on YouTube. I think it kind of became an entity in and of itself because it started to get popular. More and more people started coming from different states and stuff and wanting to check it out. And it's kind of hard because to go and find private people with lots of land and private property and letting militia groups run around in your backyard, it's kind of hard to find property owners to do that. And so when actually a property owner agrees to that, and there's nothing against the law doing that, certainly not, but people would kind of come from different states and stuff and train with us. So it kind of blossomed from the videos that were made and that are still up on YouTube, by the way.
I saw a couple of them, yeah. What I saw, at least, was a bunch of people dressed in, like, camouflage uniforms with weapons running around in sequence. Is that pretty much what you did?
Yeah, pretty much. Like Dave said yesterday on camera, and I've been saying this to the lawyers all along and pretty much to everybody the whole time, it was always of a defensive nature, everything that these guys ever did. It was never offensive in nature at all. And I've taken video of a couple of the trainings. That totally proves that.
So what were you defending against?
Societal collapse, economic collapse, some kind of a societal breakdown. Then, yeah, you kind of have to defend yourself in that respect from pretty much everything that may or may not come at you. That's what we were doing. That's what we were preparing for.
Some kind of an apocalypse.
We were prepping. We are prepping. I continue to prep on a daily basis.
Did the group do other things other than dress up in camouflage outfits?
Oh, absolutely. A couple of months before the raids happened, Mike Meeks, who was one of the defendants, and a few of us went to Bridgewater, the next township over here, up from me, up the street. We went and worked with the police and worked with the local sheriffs and volunteer firefighters on a search and rescue operation with them. And we turned up the body of Anna Marie Weaker, and she had passed away outside. She froze to death, and we participated in that search. I put a backpack of medical supplies on my pit bull, and we walked in the typical straight line fashion, and the sheriff was very impressed with us. In fact, he complimented us. And actually, there was another one that they called us up on. It was a sheriff that called us the next time for the next search. And so we responded again, looking for a man that was missing. There hasn't been anything like that since, these incidences, but those raids didn't help that situation any, I don't think.
You guys would practice on some big piece of land to prepare for some kind of event that may or may not happen, some kind of apocalyptic event, let's say the breakdown of the financial system, and then, of course, whatever might follow from that. And just to be prepared in case that did happen, which is a strong possibility. Of course, it can happen. It's happened before in history. It can happen again. And you never hurt anybody, right?
No, not at all. Nobody was ever killed. Nobody was ever targeted. There was never a specific target. That's what the government couldn't prove, is that there wasn't a specific target or there wasn't a specific date, there wasn't a specific time. In fact, the date always changed. We always were saying stuff, oh, yeah, it's going to happen, next spring, or it's going to happen next fall. And did it happen? No, it never happened. We always said stuff like that. Kind of typical, and it was really benign. The government made just a giant deal over nothing and spent roughly $10 million doing it.
Taxpayer dollars.
Oh, yes, taxpayer dollars, indeed. Absolutely.
Yeah, great. Of course, when you say government, that really equals the taxpayer.
The FBI has to justify its bloated budget in some way.
Right, exactly. You just wanted to help people, obviously. You didn't want to hurt anybody. Did you have any type of initiation procedures?
Nope. On the website, it says public welcome. Anybody can join. In fact, Dave let anyone join. One of their best friends joined, and her name was Shorty. She is a little person, and she's black, and she's an atheist, and she's a lesbian, and she would call Dave Dad. She was a very close personal friend of the family's, and she went out and trained with them, too. He took a lot of people under his wing. Whoever wanted to show up could show up. It
seems like he's very open to, obviously, any type of person. You got a short black lesbian. He can't be accused of being a racist or anything like that.
Absolutely not. He's not a bad guy. He's not the monster that the media has portrayed him to be. That's what Josh said about himself yesterday. They aren't these bad guys. Sure, we used to joke around and spout off at the mouth, and everybody's trying to one-up each other all the time. That's just what guys do when they get together like that. So there's 200 hours plus of these recordings that were made by the FBI and the paid informant, and they're all nonsense.
It formed, I guess, a couple of years ago, and like you said, the Internet helped it grow. People saw the videos, and they thought, hey, that's pretty cool. I'd like to do that too, and started in Michigan.
Yep, it did, in Adrian, Michigan.
Okay, and then you had people from other parts of the United States coming to Michigan?
Not the first Hutaree training, but the first training in which the paid informant was placed there. It was the first training where he showed up. And there were people from Texas that came up, and Indiana and Ohio, and it was pretty good. It was pretty big, too. And it was a really cool training. That was my first militia training ever. I've never attended anything like that before, and I filmed it, and I was pretty impressed, and I thought, wow, this is totally cool. I want to keep doing this. So that's pretty much the beginning of my involvement with it.
What was cool about it?
Dave was a really good range captain, and so he did many dry runs before they ever did any live fire. And they would run through and do their pattern and then pretend to shoot. If somebody made a mistake, he would just tap them on the shoulder and pull them back and then explain what they were doing wrong. Then he'd send them back out. He was a very good range captain, absolutely. I was very impressed. I liked it, so I stuck with it.
You were filming just that time or all the time, or were you running around with a weapon and camouflage?
No, I didn't really run around with a weapon. I was the one running around with a camera. And I didn't film every time, no. Another member of the group was their kind of official videographer, so to speak.
Did you film any of those videos that are on the internet now?
No, I did not.
And how many people, the biggest number of people, showed up to one of these meetings?
Well, I think they said like 22 was the most. I think that's what they said.
22.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what they said.
22.
I could be wrong.
Okay, so 22 was the biggest number of folks that came together for one of these events. 22. Okay.
Yeah, I think so. And, you know, it seems to me like there may have been more than that in the September training that we did, the first one that I attended. It seems like there was more than 22 people there, from my recollection. 22, 28, something like that.
Maybe 2 dozen.
I'd say.
That's enough to take down the U.S. government. God. Bunch of morons. So,
thank you very much.
God, the government has left the building.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah,
I love that. That's great.
How often did you meet?
Once a month for a while, and then they kind of toward the end started ratcheting it up a little bit. The world events happened. He was thinking that we should probably try to do it twice a month. Sometimes he'd take a couple months off, too. It's pretty amazing because attending the trial every day, I kind of know the succession of things now, whereas I really wasn't aware of any of these intimate details beforehand, but I'm able to actually answer a lot of the questions, which is nice.
Yes, thank you. You met maybe once a month, maybe if something significant happened in the world, you would meet or try to meet more. And how long did these events go on for? A couple of hours?
Yep, they would do the training, and then the younger guys would start getting hungry and wanting to go eat hot dogs, so we'd do that in the later afternoon. That's pretty much how it went.
You would cook hot dogs outside, I guess?
Yeah, on Dave's grill.
That's still legal in the U.S., I think, right?
I would hope so.
You never know. Because I was just doing that earlier today, and, geez, I hope I wasn't breaking the law. I mean, I'm trying to find something here. Work with me, Wendy.
Sure. Gotcha.
I got to find out how you guys were this mean, bad militia that was going to overthrow the U.S. government. So far, I haven't found anything, but that's okay. No wonder why the jury was like, oh, God, are you idiots done? Okay, let them go. Okay, so we're laughing about it, but the fact that they wasted $10 million plus of taxpayer money, they should really be forced to pay that money back to the taxpayers for what they did.
I would say so, and maybe give these guys a bit of compensation in the meantime.
Yeah, for wasting their time and keeping them locked up in jail, which we're going to get to in a bit.
Correct.
You guys would fool around for a couple hours. People would get hungry. You'd cook some hot dogs and hamburgers on the grill, and you'd, I guess, shoot the breeze and break up.
That's how it would work. That's all we ever did. That's all we ever did. There was a couple of night ones where the guys stayed out all night long. They did that a couple of times, just for the endurance factor of it. The younger guys couldn't stand it, and they hated it, but they did it anyway. So my hat's off to them. The younger guys were all very, very good young men. My stepson was part of that. Friends with Dave's sons, because they were roughly the same age. All the young men in the Hutaree were awesome. I still love them all.
You sound a little sad that it doesn't exist anymore, I guess.
It's kind of hard to go through an ordeal like this for 2 years and then not remain friends for life. I'm positive we're always going to stay in touch and hang out in the same social circles, just like we did before. We're not going to really change any social practices like that. It would have been a lot more effective for the government just to come over to Dave's house. They could have dug a hole. They could have thrown in that $10 million, and we could have all cooked hot dogs with him, and it would have been a better outcome.
Right, exactly. The government could have even joined you guys if they wanted to. And
that's exactly my point. Yep, come join us, man. You'd probably feel better in the end.
Right, and they probably learned something about camaraderie, but the government's not there to help anybody. They're there to hurt people, unfortunately. No. You all may have had some misgivings about the government, but what the government was claiming was that you wanted to overthrow them. You were talking about earlier how there might be some world events that would occur and that would precipitate Dave to say, well, maybe we should meet every 2 weeks to train because something might happen. What type of events had occurred in the past that got Dave a little nervous about the apocalypse coming earlier rather than later?
One of the things that I remember us talking about was when that MIAC report came out that basically stated people that have Ron Paul stickers, supporters of Ron Paul, the Campaign for Liberty, basically free thinkers, could become targets by the government. And they actually had the Hutaree patch as one of the groups to watch very closely. And the Hutaree patch was like the first patch. We were talking about, wow, look at that, they're gunning for us or whatever. We should try to defend ourselves against things like that. Because when draconian legislation was passed, that's when Dave was like, well, they're raising the bar, we better raise our bar, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anything else outside of directly targeting you guys? Anything happening like overseas that might have precipitated a more enhanced state of the militia?
Not from what I remember, no.
When you heard about that MIAC report, had anything like that ever happened before where you felt like the government was targeting you, or was that the first time?
That was the first time. It was called MIAC, the MIAC Strategic Report, the Modern Militia Movement. And so they went into this whole big thing about the Modern Militia Movement, and then Hutaree was the first patch that they advertised. And I think it was because of the videos attracted the government's attention.
And when you heard about the interest that the government had in you, when you heard about it and when your other comrades heard about it, what was your reaction?
Well, we were laughing about it. We laughed about it pretty much, and we should have taken it a lot more seriously now in hindsight, but we were like, ho, 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 look, they're scared of us,
You guys met for a couple of years, and there were very, very, very few number of people throughout the whole United States who saw the videos and thought this was something cool, and they would want to do it because they felt like the country was heading toward some kind of collapse, or that perhaps martial law was coming. Was martial law something that you guys...
Martial law is exactly what we were preparing for. Martial law is what Dave talked about all the time, and that, hence the recordings were pretty much targeting the blue helmets, meaning the UN troops coming here, and the UN troops imposing martial law or enforcing martial law. That was not going to happen on Dave's watch. Really, it shouldn't happen on anyone in America's watch, to tell you honestly.
Right.
That's pretty much what he talked about all the time, and he also said numerous times that it was going to be maybe the Antichrist that comes, and that's what we need to prepare for. He also said that numerous times.
Okay. A lot of people use Wikipedia, and I do myself. I think it's great, and although there are some parts of it that you have to be wary of. Here on Wikipedia, where it talks about you guys, it says, the Hutaree claim that an apocalypse is near, but has not yet begun and will occur in the future. An article on the Hutaree website suggested that Javier Solana, former Secretary General of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, NATO, and of the Western European Union, may be the Antichrist. Had you ever heard of that before?
No, that's a really odd thing. I've never heard that before. You just read that. I never looked Hutaree up on Wikipedia, ever. It never occurred to me to do that. Where in the heck are they getting their information? That's what I want to know.
That's why I wanted to bring it up. Many videos posted on your website, which doesn't exist anymore, support several right-wing organizations, politicians, and news commentators. That's horrible. Some of their videos claimed that the aims of the United Nations were hostile to American values and philosophy. Okay, that's true. And include various UN conspiracy theories, included unsupported assertions that the UN leadership and the U.S. government were secretly plotting to subvert or destroy their own charter documents, namely the U.S. Constitution and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, a lot of people believe that, all right. I'm trying to see what else they're saying here. The Hutaree insignia includes a sword, crossed spears, and the letters CCR. And that's not Creedence Clearwater Revival.
No, that's
right.
not.
Right.
Colonial Christian Republic.
What does that mean, Colonial Christian Republic?
That's pretty much the other name for Hutaree.
Gotcha. You had, like you said, different names and stuff, and they had some Professor Mark Lieberman commenting from the University of Pennsylvania that I don't see basis in biblical or military history for the names. They sound kind of like Pokemon names. There's no... Oh, God. I'm sorry.
That is just a riot. That's a riot.
This is
Where
great.
Did they get this?
They make it up as they go along. One man who once contemplated joining the group was refused admission due to his being a Muslim. This same individual later provided information to the FBI, which appears to have assisted them in capturing the last indicted Hutaree at large, Joshua Stone. Okay. Okay. Now here we go. This is under the context heading. According to a recent report by the Southern Poverty Law Center, and I hope that the listeners hearing this interview will go to splcenter.org, I think it is, please, and look at these people and see what they're all about, because what they are all about is misinformation and disinformation, and they have their little niche of creating a situation where they want people to believe that there are these militias out there. If you look at their website now, it's amazing. The homepage, they have their militia report, and I don't know if you've seen it, Wendy, but it's pretty hilarious because they have this guy who looks like one of these characters from a horror movie with that white face mask, and he's in like a cornfield. Yeah, he's in like a cornfield, and militia groups on the rise. Would really benefit the listeners if they don't already know to take a look at the Southern Poverty Law Center's website. But these clowns have said that according to their you see, isn't that amazing?
It's kind of funny because the local television newscast here, Channel 7, my stepson had his face painted kind of like that with the boonie hat on, and it showed him repeatedly turning toward the camera, and then they would show it again, him turning toward the camera, and he looks menacing when he turns toward the camera, but Channel 7 just showed it over and over and over in a repeated loop, and every time I saw it the first 2 weeks after the raids happened, I'm like, oh my God, that's just Jarrett. If you people only knew Jarrett, he's a good kid. And you're making him look like really evil.
They don't care.
Now. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny what they do.
It's funny, but it's not funny. It's funny because
not funny at all.
Exactly. It's funny because we know what they're doing, but it's not funny because your average American is clueless about what they do, and they look, oh God, look, there's a guy in a cornfield. He looks like one of those horror creatures. He looks like Michael from Halloween or whatever those characters' names were. He's going to come and get me. There's militias out there in the cornfields. I'm not going to be able to text anymore or go to the mall and shop. These guys know exactly what they're doing. That's the problem. They've got control of the media. They've got control of all the guns. They've got the military. They've got the police. And the Southern Poverty Law Center, one of the main things that they do, or the listeners don't know, is that they train thousands and thousands and thousands, I think about 10,000 law enforcement officials across the country. They bring them to
That's dangerous.
It's very dangerous.
What happens with a group such as that is that they try to get people intimidated through fear-based mind control, basically is what it is.
Exactly.
And they get people fighting against each other and fighting amongst themselves and fighting against this group against that group, and we all need to watch that group over there, and they're coming to get you, they're coming to get you. They're instrumental in pitting people against each other, and that's their main function. So when people are fighting each other, the higher-ups are draining all our bank accounts in the meantime. That's how it works.
Exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself. That's exactly right. They pit everybody against, and they stand back, and they go... And they're the ones that everybody should be looking at going, excuse me a second. They're the same people that want American boys and girls, men and women to go fight their wars overseas while they're sitting back in their desks playing solitaire or free cell, and there's people getting blown up by improvised explosive devices, which of course played a big part in this Hutaree case, which you're going to get to too. So here it says, according to a recent report by the Southern Poverty Law Center, SPLC, the doctrines of such groups are often fueled by a certain, quote, anger over the changing demographics of the country, the soaring public debt, the troubled economy, and an array of initiatives by President Barack Obama that have been branded socialist or even fascist by the heated rhetoric of his political opponents. Now, I just want to go over some of these. I want to go over all these here, because what the SPLC is saying is that the doctrines of such groups as Hutaree are fueled by a certain anger over the changing demographics of the country. I'll tell you what, I don't know too many Americans who are happy about the changing demographics of the country, number one.
It's not just militia groups that are unhappy about that kind of stuff either.
Right. And
yeah.
I don't know too many Americans who are happy about the soaring public debt. I don't know too many Americans who are happy about the troubled economy. And
exactly.
I know for a fact that President Barack Obama is a socialist because the most thorough work that's been done to document and prove this is a book called The Manchurian President. And
yes.
that had almost 1,000 footnotes. I read the entire book and I interviewed one of the co-authors. So I didn't know this before, but I know now that this fellow Barack Obama was pretty much nothing. He never even had a job, and they just pretty much created him and brought him up. And the people who brought him up were socialist Jewish groups. So that's a fact. You can say whatever you want. It's a fact. So all of these things that the Southern Poverty Law Center is saying, it's true. People are angry over the changing demographics of the country. They are angry about the soaring public debt. They are angry about the troubled economy. And they are angry about the things that Obama is doing that have been branded socialist. Most people are angry about that stuff. So that's what they're going after you guys for. That says another SPLC report notes that the number of U.S. militia groups like the Hutaree have increased threefold since 2008, and the number of sympathetic groups has doubled in the same 2-year period. I guess what the SPLC should be really concentrating on is not that, but why have there been such an increase?
Well, they know darn well why. That's the thing. It's completely on purpose. The Southern Poverty Law Center needs to stop. I'm looking at their website now, and there's not one single word about the Hutaree acquittal.
No, of course not.
One little word at all. So, like I was saying before, said this on another radio show, that Mark Potok has to eat crow from the tail end first, I think.
Yeah.
So, on this one.
Yeah. I really believe that these guys believe a lot of this stuff.
Oh, they do. They emphatically believe it. And the government still believes that there was a specific plot and a specific target and a specific date. They said that on the air yesterday. Barbara McQuaid said that. They want to live in a world of delusion and fantasy and try to create conspiracies everywhere. They're the ones that are creating conspiracy, not us. We didn't ask for this. 2 years of these men's lives gone. And it affected the rest of us and their families profoundly.
Yeah, that is the problem. They could play their little conspiracy games, but when you do something like this, where you take somebody away from their family and you put them behind bars for having a weenie roast and talking about how the United States is changing and we don't like that, when they do that, then that's the problem. And these people should be brought up on charges. These people should be put behind bars, and these people should be completely removed from society to see what it's like